A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. If you need a website or a domain, go to squarespace.com/James for 10% off your first purchase.
No way did that just nearly happen.
Right, basically what happened then was I thought I'd set my tripod up right on the edge of the seawall like this. What I'd actually done is set it up more akin to, well, something like that. And then a gust of wind came, fell over like that, got a couple of scratches, and then it started sliding down, and then I caught it by one of the tripod legs. And I know a few weeks ago I was speaking about how I don't really love this Sony a7R, but that's different from wanting it to fall into the sea. Anyway, that's enough about my clumsiness. This week I want to talk about one specific thing, which basically I think is a photographer's only job, and that is to take a scene and to somehow make sense of it. So yeah, we can get on with the video now.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Whitby here on the North Yorkshire coast. Been meaning to come here for a long time, and I've finally made it happen. And I'm here with Roman, who's busy. We've talked for a long time about meeting up in various exotic locations around the world, and here we are in Yorkshire. Very pleased about it though. Right, so as long as we don't talk about gear, I think we're fine. I've talked way too much about gear recently. So I think Roman is one of the best photographers I follow, certainly, at doing this thing, at basically simplifying a scene. And every time I see one of your photos, I know immediately what it is that you as the photographer are wanting me to look at. How do you do it? Is it your camera? Is it because you shoot Fuji? When I look at your photos, like I just know what it is that you are wanting me to focus on. And I feel like, given that you shoot in cities quite a lot, and often when I look at street photographers' work, there's loads going on in the scene. And even if you've got really complex scenes that work and they're nicely spaced and they're evenly weighted and all that kind of thing, sometimes I have to kind of search and scan with my eye to work out what it is that I'm supposed to be looking at. But with your photos, I just know immediately. Like you have a way of framing scenes or using contrast, or I don't know what it is. I don't know if you know what it is, but hopefully you do.
So I think I can break it down into a few elements. The first one is I focus on light.
Yep.
So many street photographers traditionally will focus on a story, on having loads of characters, loads going on, they shoot wide. And the lighting is almost not as important. I've heard this before where to them the story is like the main thing. For me it's the opposite. I like to have an aesthetic to my images, so light is the main one. A lot of the times I also shoot during midday, so not golden hour, blue hour.
Yep.
So you have harsh light, and then you work with the harsh light. That's not a creative choice, it's just I don't like to wake up early. And when I'm shooting in the harsh light, I can then use the shadow areas to just block out a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
So like the photo from Venice, for instance, where there's a lot of noise blocked out in the shadows. So that's one way of doing it. Another way, I try and have foreground elements to just block part of the frame. There's a photo from Lisbon where there's a guy sitting on a bench and a pigeon flying, and there's literally a tree that's blocking half the image.
Yeah.
But that half the image that's blocked, there was loads of noise there, there was a bin, there was loads of other things there, which would have made the photo worse and more noisy. So by me blocking it with this dead space, it worked out. So that's light and using foreground to block it. Other than that, I just shoot at, we're using longer lenses. I prefer a 50mm full frame terms and above. Sometimes I think just using a longer lens can help with that. Yeah. But it depends on the scene as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like when you look at a scene, you're working out what it is that you can use, whether it be focal length or shadows or just stuff that's in the scene to block the distractions.
Yeah.
But it's mostly the camera.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you don't have a Fujifilm, then yeah, I wouldn't bother, to be honest.
Perfect. I think that sums it up. Here's another example of eliminating distractions in exactly the same way. Basically, if I step back here, the chimney disappears into the tree. If you move forward, the tree kind of shapes the chimney, which is kind of nice.
So when I'm in a place like this, which is very photogenic, you'll come across this in any small town. The typical photo would be to just look down the street and take a shot. But what happens if there's a lot going on? So obviously this house, there's a gap there which creates mess. There might be more things happening. What I tend to do is if I find a nice wall like this, which has some texture, simply, if I show you, if I bring the camera closer to the wall, like so, it cuts out a lot of the noise on that side, and you have this nice dead space over here. Obviously, the added bonus is you have the leading lines going down and a nice texture. By using a wall like this, you can just eliminate some of the distractions and just help balance the photo out a little bit better. So that's a little hack, so to speak, that I like to use.
Well, thank you to Roman for some fantastic advice. Go and follow him if you don't already. Links in my description. But I didn't follow one of his major pieces of advice, which was to shoot at a focal length which helps you to get rid of distractions. I was shooting primarily with a 28mm lens in this video, and not this one. This is a lens that I had with my Leica M11 that I still need to sell. But those with eagle eyes amongst you will have noticed I was shooting with a Leica Q2, which I borrowed after a friend of mine told me that I had to try one. And I did quite enjoy the experience of shooting at 28mm. The Q2, as many people have said, is probably not actually 28mm. It feels wider than that. I'd say it's more like 25-26. But nevertheless, on this trip, and indeed the week before when we went on a family camping trip, I enjoyed the challenge of having more stuff in your frame to order. And certainly for shooting a 2-year-old, 28mm or 25, whatever it is easier to use than like a 40 or 50, where certainly in Noah's case, he just runs out of my frame constantly. Got way too many blurry photos of him. Thoughts on the Q2 specifically, I'm a bit confused by it. I mean, it's a beautiful camera, and the new one, the Q3, I can understand why there are wait lists of like 6 months to 2 years. And I checked several retailers to corroborate that. Yeah, 6 months to 2 years if you put your name down now. And I do get it in some ways because it's a beautiful camera, it's a joy to use. But I just don't understand why it's a fixed focal length camera. I mean, most successful fixed focal length cameras, they've got very small lenses, which makes them a small setup. But the Q series, because they've got a full frame 28-ish with a nice bright aperture of f1.7, it's quite a big lens. And I think if you can have a lens that big, you might as well make it detachable and also have a 35 and a 50 and a 90. Maybe they thought that would be a bit close to the M cameras, interchangeable lenses. I don't know. Anyway, hopefully this has been useful. Roman, like I said, is fantastic, I think, at removing distractions in various ways from a scene, and I think that's what we all need to strive to do as photographers. Also, a huge thank you to the sponsor of this week's video, Squarespace. And I've put together a page of my favourite images from this trip, link in the description, all very simple to do on my Squarespace website, or just drag and drop. And also, I've sent my first newsletter in, I couldn't tell you how long, to be honest. You can sign up below, but again, that's all powered by Squarespace, and I'm hoping to send one out every month from now. And I have said that before, but with Squarespace, it's so easy. I really have no excuses. So if you would like your own Squarespace website, whether it's to send out newsletters, to put together blogs or pages of your own photography, or just to host your portfolio, Squarespace is the solution as far as I'm concerned. And there are loads of templates that you can choose from, and you can get 10% off your first purchase by going to squarespace.com/James. And in the meantime, if you just want to try it out, then go to squarespace.com and you'll get a free trial. So a huge thank you to Squarespace for their continued support of this channel, and to you for watching. I never thought I'd say this, but I feel very pleased to still have my Sony a7R. Puts things in perspective. Maybe I don't hate it after all.